Jeffrey Toobin is officially out at the New Yorker magazine, and he gives a tweet to explain why he's very sad about it. Joe Manchin decides he's going to give the finger to the Democratic establishment in the Senate, so we'll talk a bit about what's happening there. Andrew Yang is eager to make sure that Georgia goes to both Democrats running in the Senate this year, and Ticketmaster says they might have to have you have proof that you've had the vaccine before you can buy a ticket. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to today, including Joe Manchin deciding to give one of these to the Democratic establishment, which I think is glorious here because it's more concerning to him at this point to make sure that things stay the way they were. In fact, conserve the way the government was, than to get through a radical agenda. Plus, much more to get to, including Toobin, finally Toobining himself up out of the media here. But before we get to any of this, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as The Generational Gap, The R-Rated Conservative, The Daily Ignoramus, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The Breakdown with Birkenhoff. Come on over there, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators. Moving along right away into the stocks here, the Dow actually closed a little bit down yesterday, 0.079% down, 23.29 points after going on a roller coaster of a day here because, once again, nobody knows what the hell is going on, and it does look like some of these states are going to be overturned as we go along. The Epoch Times actually has Trump ahead right now, but it's the Epoch Times, so what do you expect out of them? They're probably kneeling down in front of Trump just as fast as CNN is kneeling down in front of Biden. So it's all a matter of perspective at this point. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. The markets hate uncertainty, but we will see what's going on as the vaccine comes out and people start going back to work. Starting with Investors Business Daily. Dow Jones Futures, China stocks, Pinduoduo, Xpeng spike on earnings, coronavirus vaccine maker Moderna extends breakout. From Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures fell Thursday morning along with S&P 500 futures, while Nasdaq futures rose slightly amid strong growth from hot Chinese stocks Pinduoduo, Xpeng Motors, and Tencent. The stock market rally had another mixed session on Wednesday, but the market rotation out of stocks was halted, at least for now. The Nasdaq led the way after falling in the two prior sessions, as the coronavirus vaccine news hit stay-at-home stocks and many other growth plays. Chip stocks, which held up better than many techs on Monday and Tuesday, rebounded Wednesday, including Taiwan Semiconductor. Moderna broke out Wednesday as Dr. Anthony Fauci said that its coronavirus vaccine will be as effective as Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine candidate. Moderna stock kept rising overnight after the biotech said it has enough COVID cases to review early vaccine data. Because now everybody's going to talk about the vaccine, and that's all that we're going to do. China stocks are in focus Thursday morning, with Pinduoduo reporting a first ever profit, and internet giant Tencent also beating views. Both come on the heels of a huge 11/11 Singles Day shopping event. Those headlines also have key implications for Alibaba and JD.com, which are facing greater scrutiny by Chinese regulators, along with other internet giants such as Tencent. All three China e-commerce giants rose early Thursday, while Tencent stock was not yet active. Meanwhile, Xpeng Motors reported mixed results, but jumped in the pre-market on strong revenue with a bullish outlook. Alibaba is a major investor in the Chinese electric car startup, which held its U.S. IPO in August and broke out last week. The Xpeng P7 is a rival to the Tesla Model 3. Tesla is exporting made-in-China Model 3 electric cars to Europe amid stalling Chinese demand despite several price cuts. Tesla stock, Taiwan Semiconductor, JD.com, and Pinduoduo are on the IBD leaderboard. Alibaba stock is on the IBD long-term leaders and the IBD 50. On the futures, Dow Jones futures fell 0.8% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures sank 0.5%. NASDAQ 100 futures rose 1.1% off morning highs. Remember that overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we're seeing up off of this here. Tech is going down, and that's dragging some of the markets down. People are getting ready to go back to work, and the oil is coming back up. I kind of wish that I had thrown a little bit more fuel in my truck when I could have, because the gas price is starting to rocket back up, but can't wait to see what it happens under a Biden and Harris administration, because we're going to end the fossil fuels, man. No more fracking either. Just no more of this, man. So we'll see what happens there. Let's take a counterpoint from CNBC, and we'll get right into the news. From Fred Imbert and Maggie Fitzgerald, S&P 500 and NASDAQ rise as investors buy tech shares. Beaten up this week, Dow closes flat. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ composite rose on Wednesday as tech shares recovered some of their losses from earlier in the week at the expense of names who would benefit from an economic recovery. The broader market index closed 0.8% higher at 3572.66, and the NASDAQ jumped 2% to 11,786.43. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, which had been the stalwart earlier this week, struggled, falling 23.29 points or 0.1% to 29,397.63. Apple gained 3%, Netflix climbed 2.2%, Amazon and Facebook rose 1.5% and 3.4% respectively. Alphabet closed 0.6% higher, and Microsoft was up by 2.6%. American Express fell 4.2% to lead the Dow lower. Boeing and Disney both lost at least 3%. I see Amex every once in a while. I don't see a lot of them. I don't understand how they're still treading water either, because I was sure that Visa and MasterCard would put them out of business by this point, but I still see them every once in a while. Very, very rarely do we see a Discover, but Amex is still out there somewhere. Wednesday's move came after strong, back-to-back strong sessions for the Dow that were sparked by Pfizer and BioNTech's announcement about their more than 90% effective COVID-19 vaccine. That came just 2 days after the news media called the race for Joe Biden. Convenient. The news caused investors to move out of technology, names, and stay-at-home stocks into the cyclical stocks that hinge on the recovering economy. So that's what we're seeing up out of this for all of everything going through here. We'll see what happens with the rest of the story. I know that Cuomo doesn't want anybody to take the vaccine as long as Trump is president, because he might get credit for it, and he might be able to run on that in 2024. We don't care about keeping the people safe. It's all about keeping the people that we don't like out of power, okay? How dare you call me Fredo? So, that's what we're seeing up out of here. Let's talk about some of the big news of the day. Starting with a tweet from one Mr. Jeffrey R. Toobin. I was fired today by New Yorker after 27 years as a staff writer. I will always love the magazine, will miss my colleagues, and will look forward to reading their work. As people realize the fact that, and people are actually out here defending this guy. They're defending him, saying, oh, well, just don't worry about him. We hope to see you somewhere in the near future, Jeffrey. We love you, Jeffrey. We love you. And honestly, I had some words of wisdom for him. Let's see if they come up at the top. No, of course they're not going to come up at the top. But I commented the same thing on Freckled Liberty's reply to this. She replied, well, we all know just how much you loved it. Oh, all those replies are fucking hidden too. Oh, that sucks. Twitter's hiding shit. So I replied to Jeffrey Toobin and to Freckled Liberty that, I'm sure that at some point here in the near future, Jeffrey will be pumping out a new body of work. Cue Rimshot. Please clap. All right, let's see what's actually going on in the news with this, and we'll read it from Jeffrey Toobin's other employer. From CNN Business, Jeffrey Toobin fired from the New Yorker after exposing himself on a Zoom call. From Oliver Darcy. Jeffrey Toobin, a prominent writer and CNN's chief legal analyst, was fired from The New Yorker on Wednesday after he accidentally exposed himself to colleagues with The New Yorker and WNYC during a Zoom call last month. I'm ready to share with you that our investigation regarding Jeffrey Toobin is complete, and as a result, he's no longer affiliated with our company. Stan Duncan, chief people officer at Condé Nast, which owns The New Yorker, wrote in an email to employees. I want to assure everyone that we take workplace matters seriously, Duncan added. We committed to fostering an environment where everyone feels respected and upholds our standards of conduct. Toobin confirmed on the news on Twitter, writing, I was fired today by The New Yorker after 27 years as a staff writer. I will always love the magazine, will miss my colleagues, and I will look forward to reading their work. Multiple people familiar with the matter told CNN that Toobin exposed himself when he began masturbating during a Zoom call, apparently as part of a different video call. The people did not believe he intended his colleagues to witness it. #MeToo. That's all that I have to say about that. #MeToo. And all these MeToo people are very quiet about this. And like I said, some of them are up there defending the dude. And you know what? I saw somebody else comment not to kick Toobin while he's down. Well, that Toobin guy, he's a resilient guy. And when the people come to kick him when he's down, I'm sure that he can beat it off. I'm here all week, folks. Let's keep going. From the New York Post, going into election news, Representative Omar has paid husband's political consulting firm nearly $2.8 million from Mark Moore. Excuse me. Representative Ilhan Omar has funneled nearly $2.8 million to her husband's political consulting company since the beginning of 2019, according to a report. Omar's campaign paid $1.6 million to E Street Group, LLC, which is owned by her husband Tim Minette from the start of 2019 to July 22nd of 2020, Fox News reported. Tuesday, citing Federal Election Commission data, another $1.1 million was sent to the firm in the third quarter and $27,000 in the following weeks. The $1.1 million figure represented nearly 70% of the $1.6 million that her campaign spent in those 3 months, the report said. The expenses were a range of campaign services, including cable advertising, digital consulting, video production, and editing, Fox News said. Omar, a Democrat from Minnesota, easily won re-election last week because people were buying ballots. Her campaign and E Street Group did not respond to the request for comments from Fox News. Omar has defended her expenses and said that her campaign worked with Minette's firm long before they began a relationship, but now they're married and they never have to testify against each other again. No matter what the situation is, they are completely shielded from that, and she has a clear shot at half of that money. That's all I have on that one there. She's got a clear shot at half that money. That is money laundering in the extreme. But, my God, nobody's going to say a word about it. Let's keep going. From the Hill. Trump campaign files federal suit in Michigan to block results from being certified, by Brett Samuels. The Trump campaign, late Tuesday, filed a lawsuit in federal court in Michigan seeking to stop the state from certifying its final vote count until allegations of irregularities are addressed. Let's get rid of this autoplay here. Maybe not because it's not loading here, but some point it's going to start coming through speakers somewhere. The lawsuit marks the second legal challenge the campaign has filed in Michigan as part of a broader effort to call into question the results in battleground states where President Trump is trailing President-elect Joe Biden. The campaign had previously filed a similar lawsuit in Michigan Claims Court, where a judge rejected its request. The lawsuit has little chance of swaying the outcomes in a state where Biden beat Trump by roughly 145,000 votes. Still, the Trump campaign has insisted it is worth pursuing as the president himself refuses to concede the election despite Biden being projected as the winner. As we've all said from the beginning, our campaign will continue to ensure all Americans can trust in a free and fair election, and this lawsuit is a noteworthy step towards achieving that goal, Trump campaign general counsel Matt Morgan said in a statement. The newest suit, which targets the Democratic stronghold of Wayne County and Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, contains additional affidavits that allege irregularities in the tabulation of votes. So here's what's going on with Michigan right now, and I hate to be the one to have to tell you this. Michigan and the rest of the election all included in this. And I've thought about this for a little while. I would love to see Trump win at this point. I endorsed him, obviously, for reasons that I can explain right off the bat easily. One of them being the fact that having that fuck you clout of being in a second term and not having to worry about re-election means that he can start rejecting the omnibus bills and say, no, give me a budget. I don't want to see your bullshit omnibus bills. We're not spending that much money. He's got the opportunity to do that. I don't know if he's going to do it or not. I mean, he's been pretty much an orange spending spree for the first 4 years of the presidency, which I'm not happy about. But I want to see if he will reject some of the stuff when he's not sitting here worried about re-election. If he can stand up and stand toe-to-toe with Nancy, who is worried about re-election when she tries to hold the government workers hostage, and when she is losing massive amounts of support. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to. I think the Democrat Party stole this election right out in front of us because they don't give a fuck what you think about them. I don't think they care what you think about them. They just think that it's time for them to come up and rise back to power. And I think there are enough cogs in the machine that are going to defend them. It's all about power for them. It's always been all about power for them. So they will come up. They will take the election. And that's going to be that. But looking at what they're doing with all these lawsuits coming out, with everything being challenged, and Trump not conceding at this point, this is probably going to be the last election that they can use this bullshit that they're using in this particular election. And I'm sure, looking at some of the things, and Hillary not wanting to concede and telling Biden not to concede, that they do want to make sure. Well, back when Hillary conceded, she didn't want people looking too close at what was happening in some of these elections, is where I'm thinking that she conceded, and then she went off to scream that Russia, Russia, Russia for the next 4 years. They're going to try and steal the 2024 election as well, but they're going to have to come up with new tricks to do so after putting the boot on everybody for the campaign. And we will be talking about the campaign as well. So we'll see what's happening off of this here. I want the transparency. At this point, I don't care who wins. Both of them fucking suck. The Orange Man is a gigantic spending spree waiting to happen that can't shut up on Twitter. And Joe Biden is, come on, man, the thing. Waiting for death until Kamala Harris comes in as a cop and tries to put the boot down on all of us. So, we'll see what happens off of this. Let's just get more transparency into this. That's the big thing. And yes, absolutely, he should be fighting the whole way through. So we will see what happens off of this here. Every major news outlet right now has a different projection. Whereas they were mostly united a few days ago, they all have a different projection at this point. So we're actually going to see some of the sausage get made, and I'm very excited to see that. But let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, Dem Senator on Defund the Police movement, defund my butt. From Eric Quintanar. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin expanded on his differences with the left wing of the Democratic Party by speaking out against the Defund the Police movement on Wednesday. Defund the police, defund my butt, declared West Virginia Senator in a tweet on Wednesday morning. I'm a proud West Virginia Democrat. We are the party of working men and women. We want to protect Americans' jobs and health care. We do not have some crazy socialist agenda, and we do not believe in defunding the police. Now, you should probably go talk to some of your other colleagues in the Senate, because we'll be talking about what Ms. Tlaib has to say about that. Earlier this week, Manchin, who is considered one of the most right-leaning Democratic senators by GovTrack, also sought to put space between himself and the left wing of the Democratic Party by pledging on Fox News not to vote in favor of removing the filibuster or packing the Supreme Court with justices. I commit to you tonight, and I commit to all of your viewers and everyone else that's watching. I want to lay those fears. I want to rest those fears for you right now, because when they talk about whether it be packing the courts or ending the filibuster, I will not vote to do that, Manchin told Fox News host Brett Baier. I will not vote to pack the courts. I think, and I will not vote to end the filibuster. Brett, this system, the Senate, this so unique body in the world, it was made to work together in a bipartisan way, and once you start breaking down those barriers, then you lose every reason that we are the institution that we are, the most deliberate body, he said. But the Democratic senator's anti-defund the police tweet also comes amidst turmoil within the House Democratic caucus, specifically over radicalism from within its ranks. After the November election, some swing district Democrats expressed frustration with the unpalatable messaging coming from the left wing, with Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger specifically calling out socialism and defund the police talk. But with 2 Georgia special elections looming and the future of the Senate majority hanging in the balance, the Democrats have not yet demonstrated a united front against the policies and issues that seem to have hurt them in the November election, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on over in Georgia here coming up in a little bit, because that is going to be important as we see what happens in the next 4 years of government. At minimum for the next 2, but definitely for the next 4. So that's what we have off of here. I've got a couple more on Manchin. Another one coming from the Hill. Manchin shoots down chance that Senate Democrats nix the filibuster, expand the court. From Jordan Kearney. Senator Joe Manchin on Monday night effectively shot down any chance that Democrats were able to nix the legislative filibuster if they find themselves with control of the Senate next year. Democrats are currently poised to have 48 seats in January and are fighting to win 2 seats in Georgia. That would give the party control of the Senate because of a 50-50 split. Vice President Harris could break a tie, giving this party a majority. Manchin, during an interview with Fox News, said that if there's a 50-50 tie, that he would not vote to nix the legislative filibuster, a decision that would take it off the table for Democrats. In order to nix the legislative filibuster, should they have the 50 seats, Democrats would need the support of every member of their caucus, including Manchin. 50-50 means there's a tie, but if one senator does not vote on the Democratic side, there is no tie. When they talk about whether it be packing the courts or ending the filibuster, I will not vote to do that, Manchin said. So, Manchin is fucking based, yo. He is absolutely up there making sure that this stays the way that it was, instead of trying to become yet just another radical house. And I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see somebody from the other side when we see so much radicalism from the hard right and the hard left on both sides. People fighting to maintain some of the deliberation of the body. Now, of course, if we could go back and repeal the 17th and let state delegations and legislatures appoint the senators, instead of the people coming up and do that, we would probably see a lot more deliberation come in the deliberative body. But for now, Manchin trying to come up and hold some of the traditions of the Senate up is awesome, and it fucking rocks. Thank you, Manchin. Let's keep going here. Omar has something to say about this after finding out that she just spent $2.6 million in her husband's firm, that she has a clear shot at whatever the profits come off of that for. From Fox News, Omar calls out Manchin for saying that he won't support court packing. Good grief. From Audrey Conklin. Representative Ilhan Omar on Monday called out Senator Joe Manchin for sharing the narrative that progressive policy ideas are the reason congressional Democrats failed to meet expectations in the 2020 election. Omar is one of the 4 progressive idiots, who refer to themselves as the Squad, who have been pushing back against the narrative, which has created tension among members of the Democratic caucus since Election Day. Stop worrying about progressives. This might be the reason that we don't win the Senate races in Georgia. Good grief, Omar tweeted on Monday night in reference to Georgia's ongoing neck-and-neck Senate races between Republican and incumbent David Perdue and Democratic challenger John Ossoff, as well as Democratic Senate candidate Raphael Warnock and Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler. And Kelly's going to have a little bit of a challenge because they threw some sort of allegation of fraud against her. It didn't stick, but the message is out there, and they are going to put every television ad focused on that. Stop worrying about progressives. This might be the reason we don't win Senate races in Georgia. Good grief. Let's actually hear what Manchin has to say about that, because we can do that. Oh yeah, this is electioneering tweeting, so we've got to go right to Twitter for it. We can't just embedded play it.
Georgia runoffs, and potentially, if it all adds up, Tom Tillis wins in North Carolina, Dan Sullivan in Alaska. It looks like those two races could be the control of the U.S. Senate, with a tie then going to Vice President Harris. What do you tell people about that and concern about that, considering all we've heard about the progressive agenda?
Well, there's a lot of people that are concerned. There's a lot of fear tactics are being used right now, Brett. If both of the Georgia senators were elected from the Democratic Party, then that would be 50-50 if both Dan Sullivan and Tom Tillis win. 50-50 means there's a tie. But if one senator does not vote on a Democratic side, there is no tie and there is no bill. So I commit to you tonight, and I commit to all of your viewers and everyone else that's watching, I want to lay those fears, I want to rest those fears for you right now, because when they talk about whether it be packing the courts or ending the filibuster, I will not vote to do that. I will not vote to pack the courts, and I will not vote to end the filibuster. Brett, this system, the Senate, was so unique body in the world. It was made to work together in a bipartisan way. And once you start breaking down those barriers, then you lose every reason that we are the institution that we are, the most deliberate body. So I want to lay those fears to rest, that won't happen, because I will not be the 50th Democrat voting to end that filibuster or to basically stack the court. And then all the other things you're hearing about, Brett, also is defund the police. I don't know of any of the Democrats in the caucus that are for defunding the police. We're not for that whatsoever. And when they talk about basically Medicare for all, we can't even pay for Medicare for some. Doesn't make any sense at all. We've got to fix the Affordable Care Act we have, and I think our moderate Republicans will work with us to now repair what needs to be repaired.
So that's what Manchin had to say about that. So the schism in that part of the party is amazing to see, and it could cost them coming up in 2022. It absolutely could. But, of course, the schismatic nature of the Republican Party right now as well, when they adopted a large portion of the Union Democrats who decided that they wanted to run MAGA, versus the traditional Jesus Republicans, there's a lot of schisming in parties. Could we come out with 4 parties? 6 maybe? Progressive, Democrat, Populist, Republican, and then Libertarian and Green. 6 major parties. Could we see that? I'd like to see it. I want to see what good ideas come up, and I want to see a bunch of people up on these debate stages. So we will see what happens with that. Thank you, Manchin, for bringing some semblance of sanity up to all of this here. Speaking of the schism in the Democratic side of things, Tlaib targets centrist Democrats. I can't be silent. From Jordan Williams over at The Hill. Representative Rashida Tlaib targeted centrist Democrats in a new interview, accusing them of silencing progressive values and saying that she can't be silenced. Let me turn the autoplay protection back on here, just in case The Hill tries to play something, because they love to do that. We're not going to be successful if we're silencing districts like mine. We're going to impeach those motherfuckers, Tlaib told Politico. Me not being able to speak on behalf of many of my neighbors right now, many of which are black neighbors, means me being silent. I can't be silent. Tlaib, who was just reelected to her seat, said the progressive wing of the party is not interested in unity. That right there is going to be what's going to cause them problems. This sentence, or I suppose subclause, not sentence, said the progressive wing of the party is not interested in unity. That's going to make things very, very difficult for one side or the other to maintain control in either direction coming up in House races and the upcoming Senate, which the 2022 Senate map is not good for Democrats either way. The people who are up in 2022, the Democrats are defending, that's the word I'm looking for. The Democrats are defending a lot more seats than Republicans are coming up in 22, so we'll see what happens there. Hopefully they can come up, clean their house up, or at least come to some sort of consensus. And then we can sit back and figure out what comes off with the parties. We say that so willingly when we talk about Trump supporters, but we don't say that willingly for my black and brown neighbors and from LGBTQ neighbors and marginalized people, Tlaib said. Her comments come amid infighting between moderate and progressive Democrats following the 2020 election. While Democrats retained the House, they lost seats as opposed to expanding their majority as expected because they don't know where the party platform is. After Democrats underperformed expectations on Election Day, moderate House Democrats lashed out at their liberal colleagues in a caucus-wide conference call for advancing an agenda that, they say, cost the party a number of seats. Party leaders thought they would pick up seats even in deep red districts that President Trump won in 2016. Instead, Republicans knocked off at least 7 incumbents, most of whom were first-term lawmakers who helped the Democrats win a majority just 2 years ago. So that's what they're going off to this. It is schismatic, and I mean the Democrat Party that I grew up in, the Union Working Democrat Party, is vastly, vastly different from the progressive wing of the Democrat Party. That's the reason that I left. It was after I saw Barack Obama's primary agenda. It was actually before he even won the primary, when he was still primarying out for people. I looked at this and I said, this is the direction the Democrat Party is going. I can't be a part of this. I said that in 2007 when I saw the primary agenda. And of course, as I keep saying, he did flip. He didn't run in the general on his primary agenda, but the seeds were planted to grow into this progressive monster that they're coming up and trying to push now. So that is costing them seats, it's costing them votes, and it's costing them members. But we will see what happens off of this here. 2022 is going to be just as interesting of a year as 2020 was. Let's keep going from the Blaze. Horowitz. 9 laws Republicans must pass to stop voter fraud. From Daniel Horowitz. How is it that in the year 2020 our elections look more dysfunctional rather than other modern countries and more chaotic than our elections were during the time of our grandparents? The answer is that Democrats have institutionalized fraud by subverting the entire concept of Election Day and basic verification standards. If this election is not a wake-up call for Republicans to clean up election fraud, at least in the states that they control, they deserve to be victims of these glitches and will never likely win a national election again. And he pointed out something very, very important. One of my little pet projects here. Where the hell was it? Yep, right there. At least in the states that they control, because Horowitz is staying on point of the fact that Article 2, Section 1 says that the states are the ones that regulate the elections, not the federal government. And when we start getting to these federal government controls of the election, that's going to be when we start looking at things like a national popular vote. And the state of California, the city of Los Angeles and the city of New York controlling every aspect of your life. But that is another rant for another time. Here are 9 common sense ideas that anyone who wants fair elections should have no problem implementing. 1. Issue a photo ID to all registered voters. Well, your driver's license will work too, and most everybody has one. There shouldn't really need to be a need to have a separate photo voter ID to go and vote. You got a driver's license. You had to show it to go buy a pack of cigarettes or that bottle of liquor. Plop it down on that counter. Number 2, prohibit mail-in ballots for federal elections. That's on the states to regulate. So they can decide off of this here. 3, absentee balloting should be limited to individuals who cannot vote in person. Yeah, that's for the most part the case everywhere you go. 4, all ballot harvesting should be banned. Yeah, I do agree with that one there because, and that was part of the thing that I had with the mail-in voting thing, where I said that no matter what happens, no matter what comes of this, I am going to go and vote in person because I want to have custody of that ballot for as long as I can. From the moment I fill it out to the moment it hits the machine, there is a chain of custody there if it goes through the mail, whereas if it's just me filling it out, going to the machine, it's one link in the chain, and I know everywhere that ballot's been from the time it came into my hand to the time it left my hand. 5, guard all drop boxes with 24/7 security. Should be doing that anyway. This is an election. You should always be doing that. No more early voting. I'm torn on that one. I really am, because I know the spirit of the early voting and voting as it was came off of the fact that the reason election day is always on a Tuesday was, for the most part, most people in the US before we had cars were 2 days out from town. So the election, they'd come in on Sunday because they weren't supposed to work on Sunday. They'd come into town. They'd take the 2-day journey to town, wherever their district was, go and vote, and then take the 2-day journey home. That's why it was always on a Tuesday, but you could always early vote for that. So I'm a little bit torn on that. Obviously, we should probably be looking into early voting a little bit more, but the fact of the matter is that you can still have it like that. I think we still need to keep early voting. 7 explicitly authorized states to require proof of citizenship to vote. I thought they already did that. Well, I guess my state does. Tighten up Section 8 of the Motor Vehicle Law, which requires states to make reasonable effort to remove the names of ineligible voters from the list of eligible voters by creating a clear process of cleaning up the voter rolls of deceased and out-of-state voters. Scores of counties still have more registered voters than the total population in the jurisdiction. This is a recipe for disaster, and any opposition to cleaning these rolls can only be motivated by an agenda to promote voter fraud. I'm going to go back to that in just a sec. I want to talk about this last one here. Require body cameras on vote counters and processors. No, I don't like any of that. Honestly, if you've got the security in place that you need it, then you shouldn't need to require anything else. Now, if you're obviously trying to move the machines back away from where people do, then there's something else shady going on here. And that is something that needs to be addressed. But requiring an expensive addition to voting in counties like, I don't know, Rock County, Wisconsin, where we don't have a massive voter budget, or Greene County, let's go to something a little bit poorer than where I live right now. The next county to the west of here that has one major city in it. They don't have the money to have body cameras on on everybody who's vote counting here. You're thinking of how to clean up city voting, and not everyone votes in the city. So no, that is a strike on me. But I want to talk about just a second this clear the voter rolls, because this was an interesting one that came up in Wisconsin. And I mean, honestly, the solution to make sure that everybody that wants to vote can vote, but it's still a free and fair election without, with fewer instances of fraud is this. At the end of every federal election, every other year, voter rolls are emptied, clear. Everybody is automatically unregistered to vote at the end of that election. And then you re-register coming up for the next election. But on top of that, because you have to do 2 other things to also make sure that it's fair, that everyone else can come in and vote if they want to vote. Voter ID and same-day registration. And we have both of those things in Wisconsin. So, if you clear the voter rolls, then there's no problem as long as you've got voter ID to verify who you are and your address, because your official address is going to be what's on your driver's license. So you verify your address by your voter ID, and then same-day registration. You can walk up to the counter immediately, instantly, and register to vote. You don't have to go through the long, drawn-out process of doing it. Clear the voter rolls, voter ID, same-day registration. That will clean up a lot of the election questioning coming up if we do those 3 things right there. So we'll see what happens up off of this here. They're good ideas. Some of them are bad ideas, but thank you, Horowitz, for that. Let's keep going here from NPR. NPR, how we read like this, because we want the listeners to fall asleep while they're driving. And we don't want them to do that. I don't know how anybody listens to NPR like this, but somehow they do. But let's see what they have to say here. From Scott Schaefer, a vexing decision. California Governor mulls who will replace Harris in the Senate. All right, let's read on here. Speculations about who California Governor Gavin Newsom would choose to fill out the rest of Kamala Harris's U.S. Senate term if she got elected vice president began almost the moment Joe Biden announced her as the running mate. Yeah, no, we didn't have this rigged at all. Now that Harris is vice president-elect, filling her Senate seat is not a matter of if, but who and when, and what are the qualities Newsom should consider as he makes his most important political decision yet as governor. Newsom's considerations include diversity, geography, electability, and political compatibility, but not qualifications. Asked on Election Day about the possibility of choosing a successor, Newsom insisted that he was not looking forward to it. I mean, honestly, I'm not even exaggerating. There's 100 chores I'd prefer. I'm not kidding, Newsom joked. This is not something that I wish even on my worst enemy, because you create enemies in this process, you know, not just friends. And it's a vexing decision. It's a challenging one, Newsom said. Harris, who was elected to her first Senate term in 2016, would be up for re-election in 2022. Whoever replaces her will get a couple of years in the Senate before running. Newsom has ruled out a special election to fill out the term. Diversity's a given, said Newsom's longtime advisor Nathan Ballard. It's not going to be someone who looks like Gavin. I mean, not a straight white male. The current moment after George Floyd's death and Harris's focus on rooting racial bias out of the criminal justice system after she used it to get free and cheap labor for the California justice system and fighting the wildfires and whatever else that they do in the for-profit prisons in California, would seem to rule out likely Senate aspirants such as Schiff, at least at this time. So let's see what the shortlist is. One Bay Area mayor fits the bill, San Francisco's London Breed, who's won high marks for her handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Across the Bay, Mayor Libby Schaaf in Oakland, who is white, has also made a name for herself. Representative Karen Bass from Los Angeles is a chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. But Bass, 67, is well liked by the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, so it's unlikely that she goes anywhere. Kevin McCarthy called her my favorite Democrat. Let's see, there's Barbara Lee, longtime friend of Harris and fellow Oaklander. Ro Khanna, be an interesting choice. Also an up-and-comer. I don't think that she is progressive enough for that seat, is the problem. To try and take on Kamala's legacy, I think you need a super progressive. And I don't think Khanna is it. So, we've got a Padilla over here. Alex Padilla, widely rumored to do so. So we've got some options up here. It would be interesting to see. Obviously, this person isn't going to represent me because I have no intention of ever setting foot in the dictatorship of California. But either way, they're going to come out and discuss this about this. And, of course, this is somebody else who's going to be rocketed up to the top to be the next rock star of the Senate if, for whatever reason, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris pull this off. So we will see what happens up off of this. Let's keep going here. We've got another one from CNN. Republican Dan Sullivan wins re-election in U.S. Senate race in Alaska, bringing the Republicans' total in the Senate to 50. So just one of the two Georgia runoffs results in Republicans holding on to the Senate. So we'll see what happens off of this. From Claire Foran. Republican Senator Dan Sullivan will win re-election in Alaska, CNN projected Wednesday, defeating independent Al Gross, who was running with the backing of National Democrats. Sullivan joins the growing ranks of Republican incumbents who have successfully defended seats that Democrats targeted this year. In their efforts to win the Senate majority, Democrats are now looking to what is expected to be two Georgia runoff races in January as their only remaining shot at winning a majority in the chamber, assuming, of course, that they take the presidency, which is still up in the air, no matter which major outlets have said that it is not. So, congratulations to Dan Sullivan. We will see what happens out of the at least 50-50 split Senate. Let's keep going. From The Blaze, liberal activist Andrew Yang's comments raise suspicion that Democrats could exploit Georgia law to win critical runoff elections. Something to watch for, considering we're sitting to watch which way the Senate goes. From Chris Enlow. As the nation sets its sights on Georgia, where 2 runoff elections will determine which political party controls the U.S. Senate for the next 2 years, former Democrat presidential candidate Andrew Yang announced last week that he's moving to the Peach State to aid Democrat efforts there, WAGA-TV reported. On Twitter, Yang said that everyone who campaigned for Joe should get ready to head to Georgia. By Saturday, Yang confirmed that he was moving his family to Georgia. Great news, Yang Gang. Evelyn and I are moving to Georgia to help Ossoff and Reverend Warnock win. This is our chance to clear Mitch out of the way and help Joe and Kamala get things done in the next 4 years. More details to come, but let's go, Yang announced. Yang's comments immediately generated questions of whether Democratic voters are looking to exploit Georgia's lenient election laws to give Democrats the edge in both runoff elections. Well, I mean, a lot of the movie industry is moving there too, so that's partially why we're seeing some of the bluing of a usually reliable red state. Specifically, Georgia does not specify a minimum residency requirement for voting, meaning any legal permanent resident of Georgia would be able to participate in the runoff election so long as they register to vote by December 7th. Georgia also requires voters to show ID before voting, but state law does not require the identification to be issued by Georgia. It's interesting. I wonder how you determine what district you're in then. Well, I mean, obviously it would be the old utility bill, I think would be the thing, but like I say, your driver's license is usually the most accurate indicator of where your voting registration should be, but that's on Georgia. According to the Wall Street Journal, moving to Georgia to participate in the runoff election is technically legal, but suggested any new resident should stay a while to avoid legal backlash. Enriqueta Chino, a professor at the University of North Florida, told the Journal that moving to Georgia only to participate in the elections without intention of staying would constitute fraud. Technically not. Technically it wouldn't. I mean, it's shady as fuck, don't get me wrong. Technically it's within the letter of the law. People should be very careful about doing that, Shino warned. These are sensitive issues, and election officials are going to pay attention to what is happening. Yeah, and I bet you that little loophole gets closed up real quick after all this is done, too. Of course, they can't do it before it's done, because that would be election tampering, and that would be wrong. But I bet you that little loophole gets tied up at the end of all this. So that's what we're seeing up off of this here. Yeah, like I said, technically it's not fraud. Technically it's all above board, but that is a major technicality. All right, let's keep going here from the Daily Wire. Our city is bleeding. Minneapolis police chief pleads for outside help amid hemorrhaging police force, from John Brown. The Minneapolis chief of police implored the city council to bring in help from the outside after a hemorrhaging police force has left the city reeling amid rising crime. Minneapolis police chief Medaria Arredondo asked the city authorities to reinforce their dwindling numbers as violent crime escalates in the city, according to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Resources are hemorrhaging, Arredondo said at a Tuesday meeting. Our city is bleeding at the moment. I'm trying to do all I can to stop that bleeding. Some members of the city council pushed back against Arredondo's pleas. Councilmember Steve Fletcher said, "So we're going to take a thing that has not been working well and has not been addressing carjackings, has not been addressing the rise in violent crime, and say, if we just do 5% more of it, that will get us to a better place. I'm struggling to get my head around why that's a good idea." Dear Minneapolis residents, Wisconsin is open for business. Leave your voting behind and get the fuck out of there. I'll have someone sell you a house. I know a guy. Let's keep going here. Speaking of Minneapolis, from KSTP 5 ABC out of St. Paul, Lake Street Target damaged during the unrest reopens in Minneapolis. So this was, keep in mind, this was the one where they were using that to test their loss control measures. A place where they expected there to be major instances of shoplifting and vandalism and other crimes. So this was where they were testing all their systems, and they actually specifically put this store in a place where they would normally not put a Target. And yes, they're going to open it up back up. So let's read a little bit from here. There's no author given to this article. The Target store on Lake Street in Minneapolis has reopened after it was damaged during the civil unrest following George Floyd's death. The company announced the news on Wednesday, adding that it listed to guest feedback to rethink and reshape the store. That includes adding an extra entrance, more accessible pharmacy, a larger food and beverage section, and an expanded assortment in categories like toys and food, as well as beauty. I think everyone had a fear that what's going to happen to all of our stores, are they going to get out of here now, said Marissa Lang, a Minneapolis resident who lives just a few blocks away from the store. Lang sees Target's grand reopening as an investment in her community. Well, there's going to be fewer police in your community, and they're going to have to truck some more in from out of the city in order to keep up with everything that's going on in there. So, I mean, wouldn't go too far for that. But we'll see what happens from there. Let's see what Politico has to say here. Newsom issues new pardons, commutations, and medical reprieves. The governor commuted the sentences of 13 people and granted 4 medical reprieves for inmates with conditions that put them at high risk for COVID-19. Governor Gavin Newsom commuted the sentences of 13 people in California prisons on Tuesday and granted 4 medical reprieves for older inmates with health conditions that his office said put them at high risk for COVID-19. The governor also issued 22 pardons, 10 of which involve people who face possible deportation. There it is, including one who is in an ICE detention facility. Their deportations would be an unjust collateral consequence that would harm their families and communities, Newsom's office said. To date, Newsom has granted a total of 63 pardons, while as long as Kamala is not the AG of the state anymore, he can get away with that. Otherwise, she'll go back and overturn him and stick those fuckers right back in prison. But as long as she's in the Senate, she can't do anything about it. And 78 commutations while in office, but these represent the first reprieves granted during his administration, spokesperson Jesse Melgar said. The grants from Newsom went to people who have participated in a range of rehabilitative programs and have demonstrated their transformation, his office said. They included 5 inmates who were tried as adults and sentenced to prison for crimes they committed when they were under 18 years old. But I guarantee, once again, they're not changing any of the laws to keep other people from going to prison for this. They're just letting people out for political reasons. You know, you could stop having to issue pardons if you got rid of some of the unjust laws, especially the ones for victimless crimes, like smoking a joint and listening to Tupac before Tupac released an album. All right, let's keep going. From CNBC, Biden COVID advisor says U.S. lockdown of 4 to 6 weeks could control pandemic and revive economy. So, after we completely destroy the economy, we'll revive it. From Will Fewer. If that's not a reason to sit back and fight for election transparency, I don't know what is. Shutting down businesses and paying people for lost wages for 4 to 6 weeks could help keep the coronavirus pandemic in check and get the economy on track until a vaccine is approved and distributed, said Dr. Michael Osterholm, a coronavirus advisor to President-elect Joe Biden. Osterholm, who serves as the director of... Osterholm, who serves as the director of the Center of Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, said earlier this week that the country is headed toward a COVID hell. Cases are rising as more people grow tired of wearing masks and social distancing. Suffering from so-called pandemic fatigue, he said Wednesday, colder weather is also driving people indoors where the virus can spread more easily. A nationwide lockdown would drive the number of new cases and hospitalizations down to manageable levels, while the world awaits a vaccine, he told Yahoo Finance on Wednesday. We could pay for a package right now to cover all the lost wages for individual workers, for losses to small companies, to medium-sized companies, or city, state, county governments. We could do all that, he said. If we did that, then we could lock down for 4 to 6 weeks. No! Why are you imprisoning people? This is not China. And as much as this is ripped through the country at this point, you're kind of on the teetering edge of this anyway. And they keep saying, oh, the cases are going up. The cases are going up. This is an institute of control. This has nothing to do with the virus anymore. And they keep changing their mind on what all this means, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But keep in mind that, yes, if all this goes through, they will be doing whatever they can to lock you in your home and not allow you to leave after they've done it for the last 6 months. What are we on? Day 200, what the fuck ever, of 15 days to flatten the curve? No, we're not doing this again. So, they think this is going to happen. It's not going to happen. They have no authority to do so. And I can't wait to see them try. Let's keep going here. Speaking of the CDC, CDC now says wearing a mask does protect you from COVID-19. They have no idea what the fuck they're saying at this point. From Joseph Curl. Early on in the COVID-19 pandemic, health experts said masks weren't necessary. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask, Dr. Anthony Fauci said. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better and might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. But the response to the virus has been evolving ever since. Soon after Fauci made his comments, experts, including CDC, said America should wear masks, citing estimates that 40% or more of those infected were asymptomatic, but could still spread the virus. Then they said that asymptomatic people couldn't spread the virus. Then suddenly social media said that yes, they could spread the virus again. And then they said the mask that you have to wear is to protect other people. And now they're saying it's protecting you. They have no idea what's going on. We don't need to go too far into this. You guys know that they have no idea what the fuck is going on. So we got 2 more here, then we'll do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate and head on out of here. So, from the New York Post. Ticketmaster exploring negative COVID-19 test or vaccination to attend concerts. Well, you don't need my money then. Fuck you. From Joshua Rhett Miller. Wallet check. Water check. COVID-19 test. The pre-concert checklist for music fans is about to get more complicated as Ticketmaster is planning to check the coronavirus vaccination status. If that is not some 1984 bullshit, I don't know what is. Of concert goers prior to shows, once a treatment is approved, Billboard reported Wednesday. The ticketing giant plans to have customers use their cell phones to verify the inoculation or whether they've tested negative for the virus within a 24 to 72 hour window, according to the exclusive report. No! The plan, which is still being ironed out, will utilize 3 separate components, including the California-based company's digital ticketing app, third-party health information firms like Clear, Health Pass, and testing vaccination distributors like LabCorp or CVS, Minute Clinic. You will take the vaccine or you will not participate in polite society. This is what's coming. Ticketmaster will reportedly not store or access medical records. Okay. If approved, fans would need to verify that they've either already been vaccinated or have tested negative as recently as 24 hours prior to the show. Concert goers would instruct the lab to send over test results. No. Yeah, that's what they want to do to you. All right, from the Blaze. Eventbrite, Facebook, and MailChimp accused of suppressing March for Trump DC rally. From Breck Dumas. Organizers of a march plan in support of President Donald Trump's legal efforts to contest the projected results of his challenge from Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden says Facebook, MailChimp, and Eventbrite have all tried to cancel their movement. Women for Trump co-founder Amy Kramer tweeted Tuesday that the March for Trump is not canceled, saying, Eventbrite just shut down our event and emailed everyone that it was canceled. The march is not canceled. First it was Facebook, next it was MailChimp, now Eventbrite. Big Tech is trying to shut down our march, but we won't let them. Kramer attached an email apparently sent from Eventbrite that explained, We encourage our organizers to express their views and gather for a chosen purpose, as long as it's done in a way that doesn't violate our terms of service. We do not permit events, content, or creators that share or promote potentially harmful misinformation. In this instance, we have determined that your event violates our community guidelines and is therefore not permitted on the Eventbrite platform. As a result, your event listing has been removed and any paid orders have been refunded. This is some serious fucking shit here. But don't worry, Eurasia has always been at war with Oceania. Your corporate overlords know better than you do what your information is and what you need to march and stand for. Yes, this is happening. This is 1984. So, strap yourselves in, because we're in for a wild ride, because there are a lot of people in this country that are not going to let this shit stand. And maybe we'll get some new companies out of it. Maybe we'll get some alternatives. Parler is rocketing to the top of the App Store right now. We talked about that yesterday. Parler is going nuts because nobody wants to go to Twitter anymore. Minds is a great alternative to Facebook, and more people need to use it. And I'm a hypocrite in that because I have one and I need to use it more. But Minds, that's something you need to pay attention to. Gab, well, they're probably just about as censorious as everyone else, but still something you need to pay attention to. But yeah, we can start seeing some of these alternatives come up here. And I mean, even the fact that most of my audience is on DLive and Twitch. I mean, it's always fucking Twitch. It's always some Biden dick sucker that wants to come in and try and challenge us over on Twitch. But I mean, the fact of the matter is with the big tech over there, we've still got DLive out there where most of my audience watches on, because YouTube is so censorious here, and I can't grow on YouTube. That's part of the reason that I issued what would normally for a creator be a pretty mild goalpost of 2,000 subs before January 1st of 2022 to run in 2024. Because I know that's actually going to be a challenge. Because YouTube is censoring me. You could probably pretty easily get me to 2,000 DLive followers. You could probably get me there very easily. Because they're not suppressing anymore and they'll let people grow. Word of mouth will get me growing over there. But YouTube, they are actively suppressing any voice that they don't like. So, and now they're shutting down events that they don't like, along with Twitter and Facebook. So yes, always look for your alt media. And I'm not saying social media is the worst thing in the world. People use it too much, but we also have the big boot coming down up off of this. And this is coming from somebody who has made a business on social media. So we'll see what happens off of this here. But yeah, they're coming in, they're stepping in and making sure that nobody goes to the events that they don't like. So we'll see what happens out of this. And I mean, who knows? Maybe the next thing, the Google software on your cell phone, will be the next one that's betraying you here. And surprisingly enough, this is not the thing that I hate. So let's do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate and head on out of here. Thing that I like today, coming out of the great state of Florida. In fact, both the thing I like and thing that I hate today were discussed on the generational gap last night. But I was already planning on talking on both of them today as well. But thing that I like today from the New York Post. Florida's governor drafts laws that would allow people to shoot looters, from Lee Brown. Florida's governor has drafted an anti-mob legislation to expand already controversial stand your ground laws to allow people to shoot looters, according to a report. A draft of Governor DeSantis' proposed bill expands the list of forcible felonies under Florida's self-defense law to include criminal mischief, causing interruption or impairment of a business, according to the Miami Herald, which obtained a copy through a records request. It also specifically allows force against those looting, which the draft defines as a burglary within 500 feet of a violent or disorderly assembly. DeSantis also wants to make it a third-degree felony to block traffic during a protest and offer immunity to drivers who accidentally kill or injure protesters who do so, according to the Herald. Do I think some of this is a little bit too far? Probably. Do I think we maybe need to go a little bit too far to snap us back into reality from going too far in the other direction? Maybe. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, first and foremost, unless you are specifically asked to help defend somebody's business, of somebody that you know, you should not be vigilanteing out and defending somebody else's business. That's part of the reason I think this might be a little bit too far, is because this will raise some vigilanteism. People just going out looking for trouble, like they accuse Kyle Rittenhouse of doing. This opens the door for that. But I like the sentiment behind it. Defend your property because the government's not going to. Defend the property, your cities and your communities, because the government is not going to. And we've seen instances where the government is not going to. It's not coming out of Florida. This is, for the most part, a symbolic gesture. And as Rob pointed out last night, there is really almost no rioting happening in Florida. So for the most part, it is symbolic. But it might be a symbolism that we need at this point to try and get some of these other people, liberty-minded people, to snap forward and wake up and pressure their governors, state legislatures, even city aldermen, to possibly take up some of these same measures. So I'm torn on this, but I like the idea behind it. All right, and now we're going to do a thing that I hate. So this actually came to me. How true this is. I've never been able to verify this through a Green Check News Guard verified certified website. But if it is true, this is some serious shit on board with some of the other things that we saw just out of the other stories. This is 1984 level shit. From CSO Online. Ridiculous DHS list. You might be a domestic terrorist if. Which surprisingly is not a Jeff Foxworthy comedy routine. It's actually an article where we should possibly be looking into some of this stuff. And again, don't know if it's true or not. But it's definitely worth looking into because, I mean, with the Patriot Act, with the TSA, people are coming up as domestic terrorists that have no business being domestic terrorists. So an 18-year-old veteran law enforcement warned to be careful of Homeland Security training that is being pushed by local law enforcement. You might be a domestic terror if you believe in civil liberties or if you actually believe in your constitutional rights. Sadly, this is not a joke. And yes, right there in the beginning. We've all heard the you might be a redneck if jokes, but in this series, you might be a domestic terrorist if you believe in civil liberties. So let's just see what some of the things are on here that... No, I don't want to participate in your survey. Go the fuck away. Let's see what some of these things are that you could possibly be considered a domestic terrorist for. Number one, first and foremost, which, I mean, my whole audience is fucked at this point. And I'm going to pass this along to Elaine and see what she has to say about it too. But expressions of libertarian philosophies, statements, bumper stickers. Second Amendment-oriented views, NRA or gun club membership, holding a CCW permit. Yeah, I'm fucked right there on the top too. And I'm not even a libertarian anymore. Survivalist literature, fictional books such as Patriots and 1 Second After are mentioned by name. And I don't know if that means like nonfiction stuff like The Anarchist Cookbook, which that's going to throw you as a domestic terrorist anyway, but or just prepping is to figure out how to learn how to make clothing, how to cook, how to purify water, stuff like that. Or if it is just purely fiction. Self-sufficiency, stockpiling food, ammo, hand tools, medical supplies. Well, you should be doing all that anyway. Supply chains got interrupted. We saw it. And now they want to make people out as domestic terrorists for preparing for what we actually saw happen. And it's not just self-sufficiency off of this because in case the government comes and wants to shut down your party. Tornadoes happen. Roads become impassable. Stores lose power and their food spoils. You should always have a little bit of stuff around anyway, just in case. Because sometimes it comes to the point where you can't get to the store for a couple days, so you can just pull a can of beans out of the cupboard and heat them up, and it'll keep you alive. Earthquakes happen, storms happen, but this makes you a domestic terrorist. Fear of economic collapse. With $28 trillion in debt, buying gold and barter items. Religious views concerning the book of Revelation. Yeah. Expressed fears of Big Brother or Big Government. You hear that, Ron? They're going to Ruby Ridge you. Homeschooling. You are a domestic terrorist if you homeschool because you don't want the government involved in your children's upbringing. Declarations of constitutional rights and civil liberties. Belief in a New World Order conspiracy. People engaged in the above activities or mindset may be considered extremist or militia groups that exist in our communities and are hiding in plain sight, ready to attack. Now, in reality, we just want you all to leave us the hell alone. Yes, we would like to come and participate in society from here and there, if you'll have us. If you don't, we'll pack up our shit and move, and we won't come and fuck around with you guys. People who have these beliefs up here don't want to attack. They want to be left alone. Get off my lawn. Stay away from me. Get your government out of my lifestyle. That's what they want. And they will not attack unless you come and cross that fence line and come into their property, bunker, apartment, whatever the hell the case may be. They're not ready to attack. They have no intention of attacking. There are a few of them, yes. But especially with that top one, expression of libertarian philosophies. Libertarian philosophy, leave me alone. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. Those people are really out there ready to attack. So that's the thing I hate today, is the fact that this is out here. And you guys should definitely be looking into some of this as well. This is in the Discord. I'm going to put this out to a couple other people to talk about, and I'm going to reach out to Brian Nichols and see if he wants to talk about it over on his show. I want to see if I can sell federalism on his show anyway. But yeah, this is actually out there, and this is what people believe. So that is going to be it for the show for the day here. We took a little bit of a long one again, but that's what we have here. We will be back here. I had a really, really crap sleep last night, so I don't know if I'm going to be back here for gaming tonight. If I do feel better after work tonight, I will come back and we'll do some video gaming tonight. Otherwise, we will for sure be back here tomorrow for Contemporary, because the news never stops. And thus far, even when I've had to have somebody come up and pick up an episode for me, thank you again, Jessica Green, for that. But even when I've had to have somebody come up and help me out with that, we do not miss Contemporary. We are here every weekday morning, whether it's me or someone else sitting in this chair. So we will be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.